Hi, and welcome back to the Creative live stream. I'm excited today. We are so excited for another Mark Wallace class. Mark is here with us for a little live kickoff of his brand new class, Working with Speedlights in the studio. It is launching today, and so if you are tuning in here, make sure you tell us where you're tuning in from in the comments, and make sure you head over to the class page after this little live Q&A with Mark to watch the class. It will be streaming free today. And just a reminder, my name is Kate Dessa. I am the host of our live streams, and also you'll hear me and see me on social media. I manage all of those DMs, so make sure you say hi to me next time you're on social. So welcome to the show, Mark. So excited for your brand new class. How are you doing today?
Yay! I'm fantastic. Oh, this is going to be such a fun class. It's all about Speedlights, these little guys right here in the studio, and it's geared specifically for people that just want to create some beautiful portraits with a minimal amount of gear and a maximum amount of results. So it's just a blast.
Yeah, well, I think, isn't that what everybody wants to do? You want the least amount of gear with the best results. So tell me a little bit about what Speedlights are. Why did you want to create this class? It's a pretty straightforward, simple class for beginners, but also is really great for people who are pros too. So tell us a little bit about why this class is exciting.
Well, first of all, this is a traditional Speedlights. This little thing that you stick on your camera, and it's what we've all seen for a million years. That just sort of pops on. I've got my little camera here, so you stick that on there. So that's what a Speedlight traditionally is. And what's happened, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, something like that, you've got guys that are shooting with these, Joe McNally, and you've got David Hobby and those guys, and they sort of brought people into the light of, you can use these things for not just on-camera press kind of stuff, but you can put them in a studio, you can do portrait photography, you can do environmental photography, you can add modifiers and umbrellas and softboxes and all kinds of things. And so really, I think with David Hobby, that took off in the early 2000s and has become something that most people do. And the industry sort of caught up to that. So they started making Speedlights like this with different shaped heads. And then the lines sort of got blurred, and you now have off-camera flash, OCF, and all this stuff is like, what is what? And so when we talk about Speedlights, we're really talking about lights that you can either put on your camera or shoot off your camera. That's pretty much what it is. And so it's any light that's not a traditional studio light. And so if you've got some OCF stuff, this class is going to work for you. If you've got a Speedlight, this class is going to work for you. And I intentionally used different brands. And so you can see this is a Godox that I used. And then we've got some Canon stuff here. And one of the frustrations that some people have with Speedlights is if you have a Canon Speedlight, the menus are a little different than if it's a Nikon or a Sony or an Olympus or Panasonic. But what you find is that all Speedlights, depending on, it doesn't matter which brand they are, they have this similar functionality. I like to compare it to hopping in, if you drive a Ford and then all of a sudden your friend that has a Tesla and says, hey, drive my car, and you hop in, you're like, I don't know how to start this thing. I don't know what the heck. But it's all there. The steering wheel works the same way. Somewhere there's something to turn the high beams on and off. Somewhere you turn on the radio. There's a control for the air conditioning. All that stuff exists. It just takes a little 1 or 2 seconds to figure out like where the heck is it. But it's there. Speedlights are the exact same way. We know that all of them have rear curtain sync and high-speed sync and all of that kind of stuff. It's just sort of like, where is it? And so this class goes over all the things that you should expect in all your different Speedlights or off-camera flash. It doesn't necessarily go into the specifics of where those are because there's so many different kinds of flashes. It would be like describing every single kind of car where the air conditioning, switch is and stuff. So it doesn't really matter that where it is. It just matters that that it's there, and then you can figure it out on your own. And so it's a fun class. I'm babbling on, but that's that's what this class is all about.
All right. All right. Well, I'm excited to learn more about Speedlights. Before we dive a little bit deeper, I'm going to do a few shout outs. We got people tuning in from all over the world. We have Doha from Qatar. We have North Carolina, Southern California, Northern North Carolina, Boston. We have our former and amazing host, Kenna Klosterman, tuning in. Say hi to Kenna, everyone. So good to see everyone joining the live stream. So just as a reminder, this is Mark Wallace's brand new class, Working with Speedlights in Studio. And we are doing a quick Q&A before the live class or the premiere of the class starts at 9:30. And we will, if you're tuning in on social, make sure you click the link in the comments and head over to the class right after this live stream to watch the class. It is streaming free today. So Mark, tell me a little bit about, sorry, hold tight. If you have any questions, make sure you're dropping them in the comments as well. Mark, we have one question for you. Where are you living these days? You're based in Phoenix, right?
Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah. So I was traveling the world for 7 years straight of traveling. Unfortunately, all the borders closed and I just couldn't keep doing that. And so Chase Jarvis called and said, hey, why don't you make some creative live classes, maybe one a month, one every 3 weeks. I'm like, oh, okay, Chase. And so here we are. Yeah.
All right. So tell us a little, Mark's been working on a series of classes. This is what?
Number five.
Five, okay. So tell us a little bit about the series. How do they work together? What will you learn along the 10 class series?
Yeah, so this is a series of classes. I'm calling it the Essential Training Series. And it is instead of one long class that dives into every single thing conceivable that can be sort of overwhelming, this takes different topics and then focuses on those specifically. And so it's pre-production, post-production, shooting in the studio, out of the studio, all that stuff. And so we've already done Photoshop and Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, working with constant lights, it's always on light. And then now we have, this is today, it's working with speed lights in the studio. Next, I think we're doing light and light modifiers. It's all about the science of light, the inverse square law and angle of incidence and reflection, and how that applies to removing reflections off of somebody's glasses in the studio, and how to make skin not so shiny, and how to do product photography, all that stuff. So it's very, we apply those principles. And then we're going to be doing, the next one is studio lighting essentials, which I think is probably going to be my favorite, a deep dive into studio lighting. We've got on location lighting and light. We're doing some other ones that I don't want to announce yet, but they're really going to be fun for content creators and people that are looking to start their own social media or YouTube channel, educational stuff. So if you want to become, the next person that is presenting, we've got a class that's coming early next year for that. All kinds of fun stuff. So that's the series, and they come out about once a month, once every 3 weeks, something like that here on Creative Live.
Yeah, so make sure you are following Mark. Mark, where can we follow you on Twitter and on Instagram? He's always posting about what is coming up. Right. Mark, tell us our handle so we can make sure everybody tuning in can follow along and keep up to date on what's coming next.
My Instagram, J Mark Wallace. So my first name is actually John Mark Wallace, but J Mark Wallace is my Instagram feed. That's where you can see all the stories and stuff. I'm always posting my behind the scenes stories. You get sneak peeks of what's happening and all the stuff I'm working on, stuff that I work on. It doesn't make it anywhere because it's a failure. You see all that stuff on my Instagram, my Twitter, the same, J Mark Wallace. And then if you just don't know where to find me, go to markwallace.com. And there are links there to my travel stuff and all my photography stuff, Adorama TV, all the lighting tutorials, all that stuff. Just go to markwallace.com.
Great. So now let's talk a little bit more about this class. You talked a little bit about upcoming classes that are kind of studio based. This class is also working with Speedlights in studio, but I don't think it's just catered to, your big vision of a studio. So talk a little bit about what this class works for.
The studio, when we're defining a studio, really is any place where you're making portraits. It could be your garage, it could be your kitchen, your living room, it could be anywhere that you can control the light. That's really the definition of studio in this class. It's as opposed to on location where you have ambient light that you have to balance and color correct and all that kind of stuff. This one removes all that and just says we're focusing on being in a place where you can control the light. And that's the definition of a studio. So we were fortunate enough to shoot this in a studio that's gigantic. We actually built a smaller studio inside that studio so it would look more like something you would have in the real world. But the application is it could be literally in your house, in your garage, in your home office. It doesn't really matter where. It's just somewhere that you can control that light and make portraits or product photography, whatever you want to do. That's what a studio is for this class.
All right. And you guys actually, yeah, you built this little mini studio to simulate what we might have in our garage and our homes. So it's really, really catered to basically anyone who can control light in some capacity. So it's
That's right.
a really fascinating class. So Mark, tell us a little bit about the gear we might need if we are taking this class.
This class it assumes that you are new to speedlight photography and don't have millions of dollars in gear. And so there are a bunch of setups that we're doing with just a single light on the camera. I'm showing you how to bounce that light off of walls and ceilings and stuff to create soft light. There's a transmitter, and in the class I talk a lot about what the transmitters and those controls are. So this is a Godox setup, so very inexpensive. So I'll be using this in the class, this transmitter. And then from there we go up to 2, 3, 4 speed lights and mixing and matching. There's a setup where we take a Canon and a Godox and make those work together using these little fun things. And so we'll talk a lot about controlling speedlights remotely. So we've got these pocket wizards that we'll be using and why you would use that instead of the proprietary controller, how to do flash exposure compensation. Also, you need some way to mount your flash on stuff. And so I've used these little Frio clips. They're really awesome. These are sort of brand new. By the way, there's bonus material on the class and you get discounts for these clips. And so we just found out last night that we get this discount code. So if you buy the class, you get a discount to buy some of these little things, which are awesome. There's a different couple flavors, so you can mount your umbrellas and stuff on that. Or get your speedlight, clamp it to something. So all these little mounts, we go over what those are. So we've got that. Then there's some other things. And I actually use some gear that I've had for years, which is sort of fun about this class. So these flash benders, we'll use those to modify the light. These are really inexpensive. And the ones that I own and use in the class, I think are 10 years old. And so I intentionally use gear that's not like the latest, greatest, new release, because not everybody has that. And so I wanted to make sure to keep it sort of down and simple and down to earth. And then the other piece of gear that I use a lot in this class is, I don't even know if you can see it, it's this Lastolite soft box here, still in the bag. This is, I think, 10 years old. So they don't even make this version anymore. It's better. The new one is better than the one I have, but it's so good. I have not bought the new one because that one still works just fine. And so if you do see that and you're like, oh, what is that? It's a Lastolite softbox. You can go to Adorama and get one, pick one up at your local camera store. And it'll look a little bit different, but it'll be just as good and just as awesome. Like your dog. I see your dog running around the background. I love dogs. So
yeah,
yay, dog.
she's being a ham today.
Awesome. That's the best thing ever. Oh, the other thing I want to talk about as far as gear goes is we will be doing metering. And so this class begins with TTL. So that's the auto mode. So we do a lot of stuff in auto mode, the camera in manual, but the flash in auto mode. And then eventually, step by step, we get into shooting in manual mode, using flash exposure compensation, using an external light meter, and dialing things in. And so we go from very, very simple through the lens metering, what's sort of built in auto mode, show you all kinds of stuff you can do with that, and then take the next step, put things in manual, go through that, then start adding extra flashes. And then also there's a section that's really fun, and that is comparing different light modifiers. What's the difference between an umbrella and a softbox and a shoot-through umbrella and a snoot and a grid? We go through all of that stuff and just show one by one. So Teresa, our fantastic model, stands in the same place. We put the light modifier, take a picture, switch the light modifier, take a picture, switch it. So you can sort of see They're not flattering pictures, but you can see what the light is doing, which is sort of the
Yeah.
point of that. It's really fun. This class is a lot of fun. And we even do a thing where we have some Pavo tubes, these real long LED lights, and I'm
Yeah.
behind Teresa waving them around like a air traffic controller person and making some really groovy pictures. So we wanted to do something that was sort of offbeat and fun. So that's included in the class. It's really a fun class.
Yeah, it really is. Well, we have some questions coming in as
Okay.
as you're talking through some of the gear that you're going to use. And the first question comes from Benedict on YouTube, and he is wondering, what is the largest softbox I can effectively use with speed lighting?
Well, the cool thing is, one of my friends, David Tejada, uses gigantic soft boxes using these brackets. And we didn't do this in the class because it takes a lot of speed lights, but you can essentially mount like 4 or 6 speed lights on a bracket and make it into a much, much larger light. And so you can go up to, large soft boxes. Now, for me, if I'm going to get to that size of a soft box, I'm just going to use purpose-built off-camera flash, something that's a little bit more powerful, or a portable speed light, something like the Elechrome Air 1 or something like that. So you can use any size softbox you want, but if you're using a single speed light, you can zoom that out. And I tend to go up to about maybe a 2 by 2 foot softbox, somewhere in that vicinity. It just depends on how much power you need. As long as that softbox is close, you can go pretty large. But the trick is, if you want bigger and bigger, you can get these brackets so you can mount multiple speed lights. It works just fine. So if you got a bunch of speed lights and you want to go big, just look for these little brackets. They're not very expensive. You can hook everything together, radio control those, and yeah, you get big, bold, beautiful light.
All right. Well, that was a great answer to a question that we might not actually hit in the class, but
Yeah.
that's super helpful. All right, we have another question from YouTube from Forevers. Do you have any tips for line of sight limitation with IR?
Yes. Sell that old stuff and get a new flash. That's my number one thing. So IR is it's an older technology where you have these little red things here, and so it's infrared, and so the flashes and the cameras are controlling each other line of sight. Unfortunately, line of sight is line of sight, and so if you put a softbox or something on your flash, it can no longer see because it's covered. You can do some things. I have used tricks back when I was line of sight, like flipping the flash around. So if you have this in a softbox, instead of mounting it this way, so the softbox is over here, flip that around so the line of sight is behind. You can bounce IR off of walls. If they're white walls and stuff, you're in an enclosed space. That's the best trick I have for getting a little bit more out of that if you do have IR flashes. So you put that softbox and make sure that the IR is facing backwards. Don't keep it rotated forward, so that way that light bounces and stuff. But what I would do, if you do have older flashes that only have IR, if you can, upgrade those. You can upgrade to, like, this is a Canon 600EX RT. These are not new flashes. These flashes came out, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. You can find them used very, very inexpensive. And so that's what I would say, like, get the best flash that came out 10 years ago, and you're going to have spectacular results. You can get Flashpoint or Godox lights, these guys right here. So they're very, very similar to a Canon or a Nikon flash at a fraction of the cost. They're so much less expensive. I think this one is less than $200, and this one is like $800. And they're essentially the same kind of flash. So the Flashpoint stuff is Adorama branded. It's fantastic. Godox, they're essentially the same thing. Check those out and get used stuff. In fact, almost all the stuff that I used in this class, the Canon stuff, I borrowed it from a friend. It's used old stuff. So we didn't use the newest stuff because they're $1,000 ahead. I'm like, nobody has that kind of money to spend at this level. So we used older used stuff that's really inexpensive.
That's great. And like Mark said, this class, you don't have to have the newest technology. And just as a reminder to everyone, you're watching Mark Wallace's brand new class kickoff. It is working with Speedlights in the studio. So if you if you're watching on social media, make sure you tap the link in the comments. I'll be dropping another link here shortly. to head over to watch the class right after this live stream. It will start right at 9:30, and you can watch the class for free today.
Yay!
We have more questions coming in. Looks like people are really excited about this class,
Okay.
Mark. So I'll do a few more shout outs before I ask a couple more questions. Hey to Wayne from Miami. We have Colorado. We have Puerto Rico tuning in, Denmark, Los Angeles, Iceland. So we have our normal global community. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. My name is Kate Dessa, and you are watching the live kickoff for Mark Wallace's brand new class. Mark, we have another question from YouTube coming from Wendy. Does the TTL function work when you double or triple up the flashes with a bracket?
It does. It does. It absolutely does. So the TTL works, and I explain in the class how it works, and so it makes sense why it would still work if you have 1 or 2 or 5 flashes. It's still all going to work just fine. There's no issue. In the class, I do talk about situations where TTL gets fooled and where it doesn't work correctly, specifically when you're shooting into the lens. And so the class does talk about how you overcome that and fix those issues. The other thing that I have noticed, I used to shoot with a 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III. Now I've got a Canon R5. The newer cameras, the new R series cameras, and I'm sure the new mirrorless cameras from other brands as well, the TTL is so incredibly good. A lot of the demos I used to do where things just never worked, I couldn't get the camera to mess up, even with the older flashes. And so it was a little frustrating to me, like, this is what won't work. And I would take a picture and it just did. And so we had to sort of figure out things that didn't work. And it was sort of difficult with the newer cameras. So if you have a new one, some of the stuff that I show in classes where I'm like, this is never going to be right, you'll take a picture and be like, huh, mine's just fine. And because it is. Yeah, it's really awesome.
All right, another question. Why would you choose speed lighting over constant lighting?
Well, because speedlights flash at a very, very short flash duration. And so it's the light from the flash that illuminates the scene and nothing else. And so if this flash turns on and off at about 10,000th of a second, 20,000th of a second, something like that, you get something that is illuminated perfectly and frozen perfectly. But if you have constant light, something that's always on, to get really, really crisp action is difficult, because those lights just aren't bright enough to do that unless you increase your ISO and really do some things. So in my constant light class, we do that. We shoot Teresa the model jumping through the air. But we were able to do that because I had a newer camera that you could really crank up the ISO and get away with that. So traditionally, if you're shooting anything that's sports, action, dance, that kind of stuff, you want people frozen perfectly, then a speed light works. The other thing is these run on batteries. And so constant light, also you can run those on batteries, but they tend to run the batteries down a lot faster. So these will go all day and night. But a constant light, you're going to have to be replacing those batteries every 30 minutes, an hour or so, something like that.
And we have another question coming in. So typically you have all of these speed lights tethered to your camera, or is there someone manually managing them?
So I do it in 2 different ways. And so one of the ways is I'll have a remote control, like this guy right here. So this will remotely control this camera, this flash, or multiple flashes. So I can turn the power up and down and do all kinds of things from this remote. So this is a proprietary. So the same with Canon, Nikon, Olympus, it doesn't matter. So they have a transmitter that goes to those flashes, and it's fantastic. The issue with that is if you want to mix an older, up-to-date thing, or a Canon and a Godox and Nikon or whatever, it doesn't work anymore because they're proprietary. And so in that instance, what I do is I switch to something else, and that is these guys. So I don't know what my other one is. So this is a I just had it here. This is a Pocket Wizard. And so what the Pocket Wizard does is it just does manual control. So it sends and receives a signal. I have the other one around here somewhere. But the Pocket Wizards are what I normally use because I'm sort of a control freak and I want to control each flash specifically. We do both of those things in the class. So we do the Pocket Wizard stuff. We do Godox control and we do Canon control. And I also explain why you could do this with any other brand. So I try to be non-brand specific.
All right. Well, there you have it. We're getting to the end of our live stream. We have one question coming in from our lovely Kenna Klosterman. Tell
Hey,
us about
Kenna.
your shirt, Mark.
This shirt is actually, I got it from my girlfriend in Madrid. I was just there last month, and this is Deus Ex Machina, which means God in the Machine. It's a literary term, but it's also a motorcycle shop in downtown Madrid. I'm a motorcycle guy, and so we saw this. I like literature and motorcycles and T-shirts, and my girlfriend. So all these wrapped into one. So because my girlfriend is stuck in Spain right now, I have a mug that she made me and a T-shirt that she bought me. So these are all secret things for her that nobody else was supposed to know about, but now you do. There you go.
All right, Mark. Well, we are going to close out the show real quick and send everyone over to watch your brand new class. Again, if you are tuning in on social media, make sure you head over to the link in the comments to watch the class, Working with Speedlights in Studio. It is streaming free today. I have one comment I want to share with you, which is from Janice Mueller on Facebook. She's been following your series, and she says, "Thank you so much for your videos and your classes." She's been using your Speedlight triangle techniques, and she loves the triangle method.
Oh, that's the diamond, the exposure diamond. Yes, we're going to talk more about that and on camera, on the location flash stuff. That's awesome. Thank you for that. I'm glad that somebody knows about it. So those graphics took forever to make, so thank you.
So again, make sure you head over to the class. Thank you so much for joining us for the live stream, Mark, and we will be back next month with another one.
Yay, we'll see you then.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Pursuing creativity is arguably the most practical thing that you can do.
We humans are adaptation champions. That's what makes us human, our ability to imagine.
The hard part is to look inside and say, what are my invisible beliefs that I have about money? I wanted to figure out how it actually worked.
And you are really here because you became passionate about an idea.
What does it take to capture great photographs of birds? You have to be grounded in your cameras. You need to understand the technology.
Just like any band shoot, we're looking to capture great shots of the band themselves playing on stage. So the drummer shot, lead singer, guitars.
How do you even prepare to shoot with your phone? And then we're actually going to go into the edit.
Once you hit rock bottom, there's no place to go but up. You learn what's real. You learn what's needed.
In astrophotography, there is a great deal more planning involved because you are literally shooting in the dark.
We can't change others, but we can change our perspective.
Wow, that's a good way to start the day.
I had tears in my eyes.
If you're feeling isolated and looking for creative connection, try tuning into creativelive.com/TV. That's where we've got a 24/7 live stream from the kitchen counters.
I can do that backlit shot that I really like to do.
From the studios and living rooms of many of the world's top creators, where we're doing musical performances, Q&As, cooking shows, virtual book tour events, drawing, spoken word poetry, and more.
Life passed me by waiting for an invitation when the world is greater than my nation or my occupation. Be someone you've never been. You feel all that adrenaline, it's medicine.
It actually helps me feel like my days are more purposeful.
I hope that out of this deep pain will come some collective growth.
Dive into Creative Live TV today.